the whole strategy that everyone teaches you is price reduction, price reduction, price reduction. And I got so tired of those conversations that I just said, you know what? I'm not doing that anymore. I want to change the game.
The Jere Metcalf podcast, where top real estate agents tell how they do it. As we're in the room together in person at the Sandcastle. By the way, just to remind everybody, $108 million listing. We're in what we call this the
guest residence, or
the guest residence,
fashioned after the Petit Trianon from the Chateau de Versailles.
That's 3,500 square feet.
Yes, this guest residence is 3 bedrooms, 3.5 baths, plus the two cabanas.
And then we've got the house.
9,500 square feet, has a spectacular dining area, as you saw.
I just want the residence quarters. Is that bad?
Not at all. Not at all.
Residence quarters and the view. I mean, if this view.
The yacht bar.
The yacht bar, yes. And well, there's the residence quarters. Then there's the pool that you walk out into right here. And then below that, is that the yacht bar? Is that what we call it?
The yacht bar is actually in the main house. What's down below is the private beach.
Yes,
where the sand is the same as what you find at Augusta.
I mean, I love it. The Augusta sand. Do you practice, can we get the sand wedge out?
Sometimes we do sand shots onto the people on the beach. Yeah, with, golf balls.
Have you been have you been to the Masters?
I have not been to the Masters. I've been to Augusta, but not the Masters.
When you go to the Masters in person, it's not the same. I mean, it's a social experiment because you get there and you're like, I know this is the Masters, and you go to the Masters, you technically can't get a ticket. You own tickets, and you lose them if you get caught misbehaving. So you're at the Masters, and you see, unfortunately, I don't know how many thousands of people are there, but it's a lot. And I'm thinking, these people have been to Braves games, and they've been obnoxious. There aren't this many people this well behaved all the time, except at the Masters. I mean, unbelievable. So in person, you won this listing. We talked a little bit about that. But as we lean in, when you get here, now you've got the listing.
Right.
And this isn't just the $108 million Sandcastle. This is just real estate in general. We go out there, we get these ideas about how to do things, and then we've got to go deliver on it.
Well, actually, it's funny you bring that up because, what I was saying to a group of listeners just earlier at one of the panels we were on, which is they asked, how do you do this? And I said, well, you solve your next problem. That's the way I always look at real estate. And so what happened is when I was getting into real estate, I couldn't get listings. So I figured out how to get listings. So now I get the listings. And at the time I had, maybe 7 listings that I couldn't sell. They were all 5 to 7 million. I'd never sold a ton of properties in that price point. And the whole strategy that everyone teaches you is price reduction, price reduction, price reduction. And I got so tired of those conversations that I just said, you know what? I'm not doing that anymore. I want to change the game. What I want to do is I want to start looking at my listings as how am I going to convince or explain to somebody the value of this property. And instead of my going and saying, hey, get the seller to put it at a price where it's low enough to sell, what we say to sellers, Ross Clark and I, is we say, look, I'm not the buyer for your home, but I'm the person that's going to be able to convince the buyer to pay the price you want. And so then what we do is we go about putting together the package and the story, which we talked about a little bit earlier. And part of that package is the imagery, the fonts, the story, the websites. And a lot of times what happens is you'll go and look at a property online, and in the first 5 to 10 pictures, they start in the front door, they go to the living room, they go to the bedroom, they go to the dining room, but they're not telling the story. And so what we try to do is we try to shoot the imagery, but then we try to really sit down and fashion the story in 7 pictures.
7 pictures.
7 pictures. We got to tell the story of this property because that's all you're going to get from a buyer. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. Well, the 7 pictures, because is it also online? It's 7 pictures.
Correct. When you go and you click on a listing, when you look at the pictures, what happens is if you said to me, hey, and this is not for this property, but for every property. If you said, hey, Brett, I want to buy a house in La Jolla. My budget's 5 to 7 million. Send me all those properties. Let's say hypothetically, I send you 10 properties. How many of those pictures are you going to look at? 5?
2 or 3.
Yeah.
Depending on your client.
Yeah. We go 7, but we always think 5.
Well, even and depending on like the way they put them in Zillow and online.
Well, those are picked up from the MLS feed.
Yeah, exactly.
So what we put in the MLS, like, for example, 95% of all people that buy properties in La Jolla want a view. So if you don't have a view in the first 3 pictures, you're dead in the water.
And not until you get desperate do you start looking
Right.
through all the pictures, looking for the view or how many, have you ever seen listings and there's no view?
Yes.
But there's a view, but the
Yes, but
view's
they
like
don't
the
show
last,
it.
it's
Or
crazy.
you have a location where you're close to the beach, but there's no aerial shot. So with the sandcastle, when we did the very first picture of this property, the tide was out. There was no water. But we wanted to show the property,
Yeah.
but there was no water in front. So we had to wait either for the tide to come in, the light to be perfect, or, we borrowed a little Photoshop and AI and we added water from another picture that was the front.
The tide does come up, right?
Because the tide does come up.
Yeah.
The lighting is gorgeous and the property does look like that. Well, as a result, the imagery that we created for the sandcastle was picked up by 225 organic articles,
Right.
$43 million in value of PR. We won the Hermes Award for PR, and we have 5 billion impressions. The reason for that is because it was very methodical what we did. We thought about what needed to go into it, and we bled over the font, the name, the story, the pictures, the imagery, what people are going to see. And that's what made it so compelling when they picked it up. It was very intentional what we did, but we do that because when you get these really super difficult high-end properties, it pushes you to the limit. And then you go, I'm going to start applying that to all the rest of my properties.
Well, that's what I love. Exactly.
Yes.
But what I love about what you said is we always talk about telling stories, but it's not just telling the story, but telling the story in a way that captures the attention of people. And another thing we've talked about is not just capturing the story of the people. Like, you want to cast the net wide. You want people to hear the story. You also want to make sure the right people hear the right story.
Right.
Who are going to buy the property.
So we I call it body work or boots on the ground. So here's what we did when we took this listing. We figured there's 2,500 billionaires in the world, and we do this for every property. This just so happens that this is actually a finite group of people.
Right,
and we figured there were maybe 250 people that might be interested out of those 2,500. And then we narrowed down and we started to look at who likes waterfront, who collects property, who likes this and we started to figure out our demographics and create an avatar. And we did that with the help of Compass, which is really our company that is our umbrella company that helps us quite a bit. And we were able to figure out that there are probably 10 to 15 buyers for this property in the world. That's really where we're at. We're in the stratosphere here. And so what we thought is that the buyer for this property knows another person that's in this wealth category because it's a small group of people. And so what we did is we said, hey, we've got to get as many billionaires into this property as we possibly can. And so what we started to do is people like private tours. So what we did was we said, every Thursday for 2 or 3 weeks, not every Thursday, but every 2 or 3 weeks out, we would do a 15-person cocktail. And we went to all of our friends, everyone we know that not real estate agents that may know a billionaire. And what we did was because everyone wanted to see the sandcastle.
Exactly.
I went to a buddy of mine, Ed Rosen, and I said, hey, you want to see the sandcastle? He's like, yeah, I want to see it. He's a commercial real estate agent, one of my best friends. I said, oh, why don't you bring so-and-so?
Yeah.
And he's got a friend who's a billionaire. He goes, oh, he won't want to come. I go, just try it. And so we got 22 billionaires to come through this property in a 7-month period by this method. And we would have 15-person event. I would be here, Ross would be here, we'd give private tours, we'd walk them through it. And then that would be our way of exposing it to that community. Do you see what I mean?
I totally see what you mean. Because you know,
So we're trying to connect the
side.
dots. I call it connecting the dots.
Well, here's what's interesting too, is when people think about real estate, a couple of things we just talked about, most people come at, how do I script it? Whereas, you know, what I'm talking about is when you're talking about how we position the listing, how the conversations about the listing, how we promote the listing, how we get the buyers in the listing, how we get the right buyers interested. You'll have people, that conversation is usually, most real estate agents talk about, well, what do you say and how do you script? Like, what is that? You're talking about, okay, let's actually look at the math here. How many actual buyers are in the world? Where are the buyers? Who are they? Identify them. Now, the second part of that is when you look at doing business with people, people think, okay, well, now we have to go after them. You didn't say that.
No.
Now, this is what I love. Rather than going after buyers, you go, okay, the buyers come to us, but you can't just sit around and pray and hope they come to you.
Correct.
You go, here's the pivot. The pivot is actual influence. Well, who influences the buyers? Well, who else but their friends?
Correct.
Well, who might be friends with the buyers? Well, what does billionaires got lots of options. So they don't need to be scripted, and they definitely don't want to be convinced or pulled in to do anything.
Well, they never come to any of our events.
But exactly. But when a friend
Yes.
invites them for an exclusive private tour, now you're using the power of influence and the fact that it's contagious to pull these guys in, and you're playing a completely different game.
We actually use the luxury model.
Changes.
We're using the luxury model, and the luxury model is when you have a Rolex, like we had a Rolex Ferrari event here. And we got them to invite because everyone wants to come to the sandcastle. So we expanded it and we said, hey, bring 50 of your best clients here. So we had 100 of their best clients and they featured a brand new Ferrari and a new Rolex watches. And so what happened is people will come for a special event if they get a personal invitation from somebody.
Exactly.
And they invited 150 people, 125 people showed up. Yeah, that just doesn't happen.
Exactly.
And it's because the sandcastle had all this publicity, all this marketing, and all this exposure. And from that, we got 2 showings. So we've been on the market for 8 months, and we've had 8 legitimate showings of people that are very interested and were thinking about purchasing the property.
And statistically, there are probably 15 million actual buyers for this property.
Yeah.
And what I love about that is, when you understand the numbers.
You said 15.
15.
Yes,
yeah,
correct.
15.
Yes.
15, everybody. So when you understand that, it also changes the dynamics of the conversations that we have, like real life, in person.
Correct.
The conversations we have with our clients. Now, actually, we've talked about Erin Kruger. She and I argue about this a little bit. She's going to be on another live interview soon. But she's like, Jere, I love scripting. I was like, yes, Erin, but you take it in the context of what's going on. You don't just blindly say things. But my point in that is understanding the dynamics and having a real educated conversations with our clients so that they're on board. We can do what needs to be done. They understand the value of what we're doing, and that not many people understand this and can pull this stuff off.
Correct. And so that expands our SOI. So now we have a whole new group of people that look at us as the experts. You have the ability to explain it, like Ross, my business partner. I mean, he knows so much about construction, seawalls. We've done more waterfront sales than anybody. So
remind everybody the frontage.
Yeah. So what's really difficult about waterfront properties in all of California, but particularly in San Diego, is the seawall. The seawall was built in 1955 and it was grandfathered in. It's 162 feet long. And the Coastal Act is from 1976. So anything built before 1976 is grandfathered in and can be repaired. What's happened along the California coast is they don't want seawalls because when the bluff collapses, it replenishes the beach. So you want to be able to explain all that to a buyer. Like we have a property right now in escrow on the waterfront. And the most important thing for that buyer, and it's a very high end, I can't talk about it because it's off market. They want to all know about the seawall and will that property be there in perpetuity and can they fix the seawall? So you have to have knowledge and experience, and it differentiates you because that client now, those wealthy people that are very smart business people, you're explaining to them the whole seawall, the private beach, the beachfront access. Now you start to position yourself as an expert in all of these new people's minds, and you're at a spectacular property. So now
Exactly.
when after that, it was fine, but now I think we've picked up 5 or 6 listings
Wow.
from friends or people that heard about us. And this goes to becoming very famous to a small group of people here in La Jolla, which is 55,000 people in La Jolla. But then you've got Rancho and Del Mar and some of these other areas. So it all feeds into the greater strategy of networking and getting our branding and our name out. And then we did 2 really big development deals last year, Ross and I did. And now one was on the front page of the La Jolla Light. I just got a text today. It says, oh, wow, you're right in the thick of it.
Wow,
So you
yeah.
just keep kind of feeding the beast. And then all of a sudden your brand and your marketing really starts to really infiltrate everyone that you're interacting with, and you become the go-to.
Well, what's interesting, it's funny how there are a few things. The more and more truly knowledgeable you become about your market, and it's the little thing, it's about understanding the little, like, the plumber's quote, it's the little things that
Yes.
matter. When the plumber comes in and he knocks the pipe and he charges $150, and whoever's paying him is like, what, $150 for that? And he's like, no, you're paying for the 20 years it took me to understand that. And in our
Know where to
business,
tap.
yeah, knowing where to tap. That's it.
Yes, to know where to tap.
know where to
Yes.
tap. Thank
I tell
you.
that story all the time.
But that is truly, it's funny because this is what's motivated me to do this podcast.
Let me stop you right there for 1
Please.
second.
Yes.
So we had a discussion with a client, and it was a very, very high-end property. And the client said, well, you sold my property off market. You didn't have to spend any money on marketing. So I don't know if, your commission really, really should be what it is, because you didn't really have to even practically list the property. It's a very high-end property. And so we turned to him and said, yeah, I guess we should have charged you more. And she's like, what? She goes, yeah. And we said, well, yeah, because what if you would have had to show it? What if you had it on the market for a year or 2? Well, we couldn't sell it because properties in this price point don't sell for a year or 2.
Exactly.
And I said, so now you got all the carry. Now you got all the pain. Then you got to show it. Then you got all of the issues that you're going to have with doing it. I said, but one other thing, I said, this is what we call the 15-year overnight success story. And she goes, what? I go, yeah, this is 15 years plus my life experience as well as Ross's of what we've done in all of our life to be able to figure out that when the buyer walked through the door or was looking at 10 properties, why they chose yours, why they didn't have a problem with the seawall, why they didn't have a problem with the interior designer, the roof, all of the things. We have all the right people in place, and it seems like the deal was really easy, but that's what makes us good. What makes us good is it's seamless.
There are 2 things about that come to mind. Number one, just in the practice of real estate. And then I'm going to say another one, just in the mindset of real estate. But in the practice of real estate, you said something that's so valuable that I wish the whole world of real estate agents would really lean into, is it's understanding what the buyer's paying for. When you understand what's valuable to that buyer, it's why it's so important to be at the showings. When you understand as the listing agent, what is that buyer? Even when we toured this property, there were all of these exquisite things about the property, but I love how you landed on how valuable it was, the seawall was, and the not the square footage.
The irreplaceability.
The frontage and the irreplaceability. Yes. The irreplaceability.
Yeah, that's the priceless.
And the other thing is, it's like different price points, I think, have different motivators. For example, in a price point like this, the motivator to action is not because I have to have a house right now. It's because this is a once in a lifetime opportunity that I may not ever get again. But understanding what I'm buying and where the value is paramount. Now,
it's everything, because one of the real reason that we ended up with the listing is, one, we have a bunch of the top records. We have 8 of the top 10, but it's our ability that when a buyer walks in the door, one of the questions they have is, how do you rationalize this price in this market when the highest price sale ever was in Del Mar at 44 million, and in La Jolla it was 35 last year? How do you rationalize this price? How do you argue this price? And after they walk the property and we explain it to them, and we show them that the one next door, a property of tear down, sold for 16 million, it's half the size. This is a double lot. That's 32 million just for the land. And then you say, look, You have built other properties. The ceilings are all hand painted, hand carved, 18 and 24 karat gold. We've had most of the clients that have seen it don't have a problem with the price. They actually say, I don't think you could replace this for this amount of money.
But they wouldn't have said that without the right presentation.
And then if you're always in there wondering, hey, is the value here? We think it's actually a pretty good deal, you see? And then they're like, well, what do you mean? And go, well, try to go build it.
So everybody listening, I think was so huge about that is like, I'm not even laughing in your moment about how to build it, because the concept, it's like understanding there's getting so many agents get in defensiveness and desperation.
Yeah.
When it comes to commission and pricing. And we just hit on both of them. When it comes to commission and someone said, well, maybe I shouldn't pay you a commission. Rather than explain it and get defensive, you just landed it. Hey, well, we could have decided your house on the market for a year and had it shown and not sell in this price point. Or we could give
What's your carry?
Right. What's your
carry?
Or we could just give you the $15 million of experience, but 15 years not of experience in a couple of days.
Yeah.
You pick. That's it. Like, we're not getting paid by the hour here, but not defending it.
Yeah. Our value is not our hourly wage. Our value is our ability to talk people into things and to present things to people and get them to pay the value of what's there in an articulate manner. It's no different than your Rolex or your Ferrari.
Well, this is where I love to give you a hard time. Not that I give you a hard time, but you're not talking them into it. Or we're not even convincing them of it. It's about framing it.
Yes. That's a good point. Yes, you're framing
it. It's like, I always tease you about that, but it's framing it. And you're the best at it. It's framing it and positioning it so people understand the value. They understand, like, did you see, like, side note, the Birkin bag? I'm always talking about Birkin bags.
Right.
How much there was a Birkin bag, and now I can't remember, but I want to say it just sold for like $500,000, like millions of dollars. I don't even know. And maybe it was because usually they
So I have a take on that.
Whatever. It's crazy.
Yeah, but I have a take on that that's different than when you buy real estate as I mentioned to you, I like to study things. So I've been studying pricing. So I study pricing a lot. There's
that
value.
Might be a good thing to do as a real estate agent.
Yes, there's value, but there's the quality sale. And so when people go to buy something, if you can articulate to them the craftsmanship, what goes into it, how incredible the people are that work on it, what a fine mechanism. That's why people pay for watches. I was never a watch guy, but once I started to look into it, I'm like, gosh, this is pretty amazing, with a Ferrari or a Lamborghini. Now, the Birkin bag is that's a brand sale. That's a one-of-a-kind sale. This house is both, because this house is the real estate, the construction, what was here, and the one-of-a-kind. So when you're talking to somebody, they have to be able to appreciate that and be comfortable with that purchase. But we are all those buyers. That's us.
Oh, exactly. But that's what we forget.
Just can't afford $100 million, but we can afford, the Rolex watch. I don't have a ton of them, but I get it. Yeah. I understand it now. I have a couple of them.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and then this is where it all comes together, is to remember all of this. Guess what? People remember it best in the frame of a story.
Yeah.
And I'm probably repeating something we all know, but it's good to remember. I can give you 20 facts, or I could tell you a story with 100 or thousands, and you'll remember them all, but you'll never remember the list. But you always remember the story.
Right.
Which is so...
That's why when we talk about the property, when I really go and do a listing, I talk about the vision that the seller had. And they said, well, why is he selling? I said, because he loves to build things. He built companies. He sold companies. He built properties. He built his own yacht, had it built. And I said, he loves to build things. He's built this property. He's enjoyed it. He's had his grandchildren, his family. It's been a family home, but it's really something he just loves to build beautiful things. He sells them. He's going to do it again. But that's what he likes to do. So he's a builder of things, but it's a little bit no different than how we are, because I like originally putting matches together. I built the match. I built players because I coached them. I built a tennis business. Now we have a real estate business. So it's really fun to put all this stuff together. It's fascinating to learn from all the people, how they build their business. But also, this is what the mindset of the person that builds this is like. He's so next level. and you can relate to it. But then you, as a real estate agent, when you take on something like this, you got to be able to articulate it. And it's at
Exactly.
any price. It's nothing, it has nothing to do with the price of this property, because people really, when they build a home or they improve their home, then all of a sudden it's their vision and you're selling their vision. And sometimes it's unsaleable. So you got to get them to paint, carpet, change it, because that's not what the buyers are looking for. So you have to adjust what they've built and say, hey, here's what a buyer's looking for. Let's make this fit more into the larger buyer pool.
Well, and that's, of course, now you made me think of like three things, but a few things that reminds me of is talking to clients. I mean, you're selling a $108 million property here as one example, and other expensive properties. But we talked about our first interview. I can't believe this is our third, but our first interview, I literally took everybody, listen to it if you haven't. But that first interview, you talked about taking a neighborhood in La Jolla, or I think it was just north of La Jolla.
Yeah, it's a Bird Rock waterfront. We rebranded it.
And literally changed the price point. You broke the record of 13 million immediately, we
got them to 20.
Into over 20 million. I remember. And I applied the same concepts in that interview to break price records in Atlanta. Like people, you can't do that in Atlanta. Yes, you can if you understand the positioning and the framing. But the other thing is situational hierarchy. We were just talking before we were recording about Oren Claff. Pitch anything. And when we're working with clients, we are the authority, and being able to own that in a way that's not so authoritative or
Correct.
even convincing people, but aligning people, meeting them where they are, and not being afraid to own being the expert in what we do and understanding how to position what they built to sell it to other people.
Yeah, it's really fascinating.
Yeah.
I had a listing appointment 2 days ago, and it was on an expired listing. One of my agents in the office said, oh, come with me to this appointment. I didn't know that much about the property, but I had looked it up. I knew kind of like price per square foot, this and that in the area. And we walked into the appointment, and we were meeting with an elderly gentleman. And I'm not sure everything was happening quite right, because we were having to repeat ourselves a lot. But his wife was in the other room, and she's an artist in the next room, and she was kind of listening, and we kind of knew, I kind of knew she was there, and I knew that she was an artist, and the property was built originally by Wally Cunningham, which is one of the most well-known architects in the area. He actually did the guest house, this and that. So I started talking to them, and I started to talk to the gentleman about the problem with the sale of his home is not price, has nothing to do with price. And I'd showed him the pictures. There was no view. It has a gorgeous view. There were no picture of the architect. There was no picture of any of the things that Wally does when he builds a home. There was no aerial shot of the roof and all those.
They're not selling what
Yes,
people are
and
buying.
so I started to talk
house.
about. I said the problem is your property is not positioned right in the market, and it's not. Look at the description. It's not really being sold and presented to the public, so people aren't valuing it. So all of a sudden she comes rolling in from the next room. She goes, what'd you say? She's an artist. And I said, look, when you sell art, because she also sells her art, I said, you can't just sell price. You can't just sell. And I showed him, I said, look at this picture. What does that picture tell you? We got the listing.
Of course.
And they're excited because they have like a whole new approach and we just did this on a property at 5740 La Jolla Corona. They had it on the market, priced really high, but it had foliage all around it. It's a gorgeous architectural gem.
Yeah.
And we trimmed all the trees back, reshot it. They had 4 showings in almost 2 years. We had 17 showings in 3 months, and we're in escrow at $12 million. Not because we're so great, but because we were able to reposition the property. And when people walked in, we could articulate how amazing that property was, because the architecture was so phenomenal and irreplaceable that all they had to do was refresh the house, and a $12 million would be worth 17 or 18 all day long.
And isn't that interesting? Because I have to say, there are not many conversations among real estate agents like this. No offense to us real estate agents in the world, but I've gotten so much from our conversations because I was a real estate agent and I was starting to learn.
Well, very successful one at that, I might add.
Right. And I remember talking to agents all over the country and realizing there are other ways to sell property than just talking about price.
Yes.
And then And then
it's sad. It's
and it's not just
unfortunate that
square
we don't
footage.
study more of these other things
But it's not.
and apply them. They're in all these other fields.
Well, maybe it's not, because every time I talk to you, I remember why I love selling real estate, because it makes the job easier for us. Well, it does and it doesn't, because I think if we understand together that we actually bring more to the table than just what Zillow does, for example. No offense to Zillow.
Well, Zillow is, I call it job security.
Oh, yeah, for us.
It's job security because it's so inaccurate.
Yeah.
It's so inaccurate in our market, in this market, because we're not a track home market.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, it's job security. And because anyone that talks about Zillow, I know immediately they don't know what they're talking about. Because what happens is, if they're looking at the algorithm of Zillow in La Jolla, where you have the big hill in the middle and you've got different views and different finishes, it shows me that you really don't understand the market. And then I start to explain to them how the algorithm works and everything. And they ultimately realize they don't know anything about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, how do you do that? Because nobody ever wants to be told they're wrong or they don't know what they're talking about.
No, I never tell them that.
So how do you do? What does that conversation sound like?
So, it's actually really quite interesting. So what I do with people, and we love to do this, is we like to have a meeting, and we like to do the meeting in our office if we can, because then you can control the environment. They see all our beautiful properties that we've sold all over the walls. Right away, we have a credibility builder.
Reminds them of the
Reminds
situational
them that
hierarchy.
we know how to do it. And then we put on the screen everything we're looking at. And we say, look, you're in this neighborhood, and here are the 5 properties that sold that are relative to what you've been selling. And here are the price points. Here's what it's looking at. And you start to go through the explanation. Now, you need to be able to articulate what numbers mean. For example, in my neighborhood, I have about a 2,500 square foot home. There are homes as high as $4,000 a square foot. But I mean, 4,000 square feet. But my market, when I bought, was about a $2 million market. I bought my house for about $1.1 million or $2 million, whatever. And then the market went up.
Yeah.
And it went up to like 3.5, $4 million. So you can't compare a 2,500 square foot property in a neighborhood to a 4,000 square foot property, because you're going to have a lower price per square foot always for the 4,000 square foot, because the psychology of the buyer,
the square feet either.
Well, but is like, oh, I'll only pay. It's a $3 million neighborhood or $2 million neighborhood.
Oh, exactly.
But once it starts to break that cap, now my house all of a sudden becomes a very valuable home per square foot, because I'm the smaller square foot in a bigger neighborhood with larger properties, which push me up. Now in Claremont, which is an area around here, all the homes are 1,200 square feet. There's no 24, 3,000. So you can't get the bigger number because they're not quite large enough. So what people are doing is they're adding a square footage. So there's a whole psychology to explaining this when you're looking at it online with them. And then you say, well, you've looked at all the same information I have. Here's what we suggest. What do you think? And then the data speaks for itself.
Well, also, different things drive prices in different neighborhoods.
Correct.
And just knowing that.
Yes.
I mean, I don't think Zillow figures that one out.
No, it's very hard for the algorithm to know all this.
Have you ever?
It can't.
Well, here's what I've had happen.
Yeah.
So you start understanding, and this is kind of fun, but it'll lead to some good stories, I'm sure. When you're in a market and you're an agent and you understand what drives price and how to position a property to drive the price as high as possible and terms for a client, there's a lot of framing and positioning that goes to that. But understanding the market and what to focus on, because we can only focus on 3 things at a time, really. I mean, actually one, but we can remember 3, maybe 7, but really 3.
Right.
I found when people are buying houses.
Sure.
So as people are looking,
rule of 3.
Right. It's true. And people like 3. There's something about 3s that just works for people. So as people are looking at properties and they're remembering those 3 things, if you understand that and identify what they are in a market, you can sell a property for much more than the algorithm or even what a real estate agent might think, not understanding that and how to frame that. Just having fun. I remember learning that, and agents would get so mad at me. Now, other agents with the buyer who were looking for those things would get really excited. And then, but the point is that as you do these things and learn the market and shift it, what's your experience? Do you get a little bit of, do you stir things up a little bit in your market, or?
Well, so originally, what I found in markets is that a lot of the real estate agents get a little bit caught up in trying to be right. So we're not in a right and wrong business, because what somebody wants to pay for something is up to them. What you're doing as a real estate agent is you're walking them. We have many, many buyers we take to properties and we say, yeah, we don't think you should buy this property
Right.
because the property's not that well built. The price doesn't reflect what's in it. This isn't a good deal. So sometimes it's a deal or not deal. So don't get me wrong. I'm not always pushing everyone to buy. I mean, my whole business
But
was all
when you
based on
represent the
short sales.
seller,
Yeah, my whole business was short sales and foreclosures, and all I did was, just go after great deals.
that's where you learn the numbers.
On the buy side. Yes, that's where you learn the numbers.
And then when you understand what buyers pay for, you represent the seller and
Right.
you position the property so that the buyers miss
But
out.
I think you got to
Yeah.
realize in your mind, you're not just selling when you're selling. You're not just selling the client, you're selling the agent. Because the agent, our best buyers for all of our high-end properties are honestly agents that come from out of the area. And we look inexpensive. And believe it or not, I was just on a panel. The guy just did a $105 million deal last week in LA. So he's looking at this like, yeah, I can see that. Like, hum.
Right,
Whereas
exactly.
for us and the agents in this market, this may seem like out of this world. It's no different than my brother-in-law grew up in La Jolla and homes were selling for $200,000-$300,000 that are now selling for $5 million or $10 million. And they're like, this is crazy. So it's really conceptual. But
Exactly,
the fact
yeah.
that we go to other areas, like I was just in Northern California, I was just in Orange County, you have to go to other areas to open up your mind to see what people are paying for things, so that it opens up your mind towards what you're selling. And you got to realize you've got to really pay attention to the buyer and the agent, because the agent is very, very powerful. And
Yes,
they
they
will
are.
also speak to their client. And sometimes, like we had this one deal, for example, we had a $10 million deal we're trying to sell, and the agent came in and the buyer wanted to put an ADU in the back. And it was about an acre up in La Jolla, up in the hills. And the agent said, hey, you can't really put an ADU back there, or the ADU, you can only do 800 square feet and it's really hard to get. And Ross and I knew that wasn't true. So what we did is we called the architect on the phone. He got in his car, ran up the hill, and he showed the buyer, hey, not only can you do a 1,200 square foot, but you can do a subterranean level with a walkout basement. You can do 2,400 square feet. And they bought the house. So we didn't confront the agent, because you never want to make the agent look bad, because they're actually trying to get through the deal, but they may or may not know the information. But we're very, very careful to comment on things we don't know 100%. We lean on our experts, and you let the expert talk to the client and tell the client, hey, this is what it is.
Exactly.
And then that way you're not in a confrontation. You have to, it's all
Because
about
once
finesse.
Once you get there, whether you're convincing or confronting, I always call it defense or desperation. Once you go to those zones, you're just not going to be in a good place.
No.
At all. I think it's huge because real estate agents, we say this a lot on this show, but it's so true. The real estate agent is the client almost more than the client's the client.
Yes, at times. Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that. Do you have any good stories for us?
Well, that was a pretty good one.
Yeah, it was.
One of the things that happens sometimes, and this happened to us not too long ago, is we had a client come into a property, and he loved the property. It was like $7.5 million property. And his agent was really skeptical, going through all the difficulties of the property. So rather than talk to them in person, I called the agent up and I said, what's going on here? And she's like, well, I interviewed for that listing. And so I said, I completely understand that. We're in a cooperative, competitive field. And I said, look, I understand that, there's winners and losers when you go for the listings, but this is actually worth the money. This is not one of those that's crazy overpriced. And I said, in our world, we try to let the buyer buy. But it was just a little bit of a bug up her crawl, excuse my French.
Yeah.
And I think it was just difficult. we ended up doing the deal. We had some pretty serious repair requests, but it can happen. And then sometimes people are like that. So I find that you're not rewarded in this business for righting a wrong, getting back at people, all of that. This is a, keep moving forward, do the deal that's in front of you. You're going to get some, but you do need to be a cooperative competitor. So if I'm competing with you for a listing, but you get the listing, I move on. I'll bring you a buyer.
Yeah. Well,
let's move on.
When you try to right the wrongs in this business, they sure do bite you. But when you let it go and move forward and just, it's amazing how things work. If you let things work for you, it's amazing how when they seem like they're not going well, but if you just let it work itself out and just make the right choices, it's amazing how they actually work out a little better than what you thought the direction it was going in.
But fortunately, we're able to bring people around. Generally, we're not antagonistical agents.
Yeah.
We're trying to work together with everyone, but there are deals that they're just not the right deal, and then you just move on. That's not the end of the world.
Exactly.
And then you try to sell it to another buyer, or you when I'm representing a buyer, I'm trying to find them the right property at the right price. That's good quality and good value. Yeah. And but at the end of the day, if a buyer wants to buy something, it's up to them. And if they want to buy it, but like I have a client, he bought a property and I said, I don't think you should buy this property. He bought it, renovated it, and made $1 million.
Thank goodness he didn't listen to you.
And then
there goes another great story. Yeah. Hey, and that's the stories I used to love to use. Look, like this is what I see, but here's what's happened. I'm right. It doesn't make me right. Yeah. It's real estate.
But then I go back and case study it. And I go, what did I do wrong? What did I not see there? What I didn't see was COVID.
Well, there you go. There you go.
So sometimes,
and there's another good part of the story. Yeah. Here's what I didn't see. Here's what happened. Here are the things here's the way real estate works, because
that's why you can't say to clients, hey, if you buy, this is what's going to happen in the future. Because there's so much uncertainty. I mean, what if we go to war? What if, I mean, I don't know. There's so many things that can go wrong. But you have to be so disciplined, because the client asks you all the time, what do you think this will be worth in 5 years? What do you think this will,
Well, remember I don't know if I think it was HGTV that did this, but they had the whole thing where they do the show, and if you do these things, it's going to be worth this. And I mean, like, how could they do that? Because you can't know.
You can't.
You can't. Now, in certain neighborhoods and certain types of properties, you can kind of know, but
you can gauge.
Don't. You can gauge.
Yeah.
That's
but things go wrong.
But you don't know.
No, and things go really right.
Yeah.
So, but at the end of the day, we're hitting a lot of triples, home runs. I mean, we're helping our clients out a lot. Are they buying it? And depends on what their usage. Are they buying it because they want to live in it? Are they buying it, because they want to develop it and resell it? I mean, the whole game and the whole impetus is to figure out where everyone's headed. Sellers as well. Sellers and buyers. You got to see what the goals are. And then what we do is we step back and we say, look, give us overnight. We want to see if we think we can help you reach your goal, and if it makes sense. And if we can, we say yes. If we don't think we can reach their goal, they say, well, I want to list it at this price anyway. And we're like, okay, you're a great person. You're a business person that I'd like to work with. Okay, we'll do that. But when you're ready to sell your property, just let us know, lower the price, and we'll sell it.
Yeah. Well, something that I love that you said, you actually said a little bit of that on our last conversation, or our last official podcast interview, but you talked about when we go to a listing appointment, it's not like, we don't even entertain it like we're interviewing for a job. Hey, we want to learn what you want, and we'll let you know if we think we can do it.
Right.
Like, I love that.
It's a fact-finding mission.
Another thing you said, so I want to make sure we get the record straight. In the past, you said...
Now, there are certain listings we really want.
There
like
you go.
the sandcastle.
Like, well, even this listing, there were different price recommendations, and yours was the highest.
Yes, correct.
And that was a pricing strategy, because pricing isn't just pricing. Pricing is all about strategy.
But, well, actually, one of the people came in 10 million over us. So we were kind of in the middle. So, somebody came in at 120, but we just chose this price from the fact that we felt that the value's here, but also we wanted to use 8 because it's a lucky number for a lot of the world.
Exactly.
And we wanted to be over 100 because we think that's a great number for marketing publicity. And we felt like the replacement cost is pretty close to that.
Exactly. Well, exactly. Now, a question I want to lean into. I kind of was hinting at it earlier, but really, like, and I think this goes into tennis too. When you're playing tennis and you're on the court, you just got to have a certain amount of focus. Like, no matter what happens, I'm a terrible tennis player. But I know
Yeah, but
that's
you're
why
probably a good athlete.
I am, but I'm a terrible tennis player. But when you're in the court, the concepts of things and being on the court and doing it are not the same. Same thing in real estate. When you're in the room, when you're in the moment, when you're at the showing, when you're with the client, when you're
Right.
negotiating the deal, how do you show up and deliver without getting like a lot of people can't do it?
Right. Well, so I agree with you. And so one thing about real estate that's really interesting, having been a competitive athlete, is honestly, in real estate, there's no real performance element. So let's say I'm playing you in tennis and I say, okay, I've played you 20 times. I know how you play. I still got to execute all the shots. And so one of the most difficult thing in athletics is execution of the shot, of playing the game, putting it together. I don't know if you haven't played competitive sports, you can't quite understand what that means. In real estate, what happens is you have to really be able to think on your feet.
Mm-hmm.
Which what you're doing in when you're on the tennis court, you're there face to face with somebody, you're problem solving, but in the moment. You're problem solving while you're actually executing shots. So the best players, they kind of have this like what's going on in the match. They have an overall picture, but they're still hitting the ball, playing the match. And so what I tell my agents all the time and what we do is we want to keep the ball in the air. We want to keep the ball in the air. So when we're in a negotiation and like, when we were going for, let's just hypothetically talk about commissions on this deal, you have a moment there where like, do I hold the line? Do I acquiesce in order to get the deal? What is the decision to make? And so I call it uh, right choice at the right time. And that is a very, very difficult thing to teach.
And sometimes to do.
Yes. And so you get better and better at knowing your audience, reading the people. You have to really pay attention in those moments. And then you make a business decision as to what you're doing in that moment and whether or not it makes sense for you to weaken your position or whether it makes sense to hold the line. A lot of agents I hear all the time, especially very successful agents, I never reduce my commission. There's a lot of nevers. And this is not a never business. I'm not running around reducing my commissions or giving in on lots of stuff. But you got to remember that you're in a negotiation. And sometimes in our business, a really little, like fixing a faucet, changing a chair, paying for some little thing, it just makes the other person feel like you care a little bit more than the next guy. And so there's a lot of finesse in what you give up and how you give up. And that's a discussion. And that's why I really like my partnership with Ross, because he and I go back and forth as to what to do and what not to do.
Yeah.
And we finesse how to figure that out. And I think that's been a really valuable asset for us.
Gives you a lot more power and
But
leverage.
I do think that you got to find out that fine line in every moment. But the only way you're going to find that is really read the room. Read the room, read the people, listen, see how far you can push people, when to pull back.
Yeah. Well, it's hearing what they're not saying, reading the things that are, there's always like, I think one of my favorites is, it's the hardest to remember, but what do I not know? There's so much I don't know that would change everything.
Yes, true.
The other
And then I always say, use your weapons.
Oh,
Your negotiating weapons.
What's that?
So your biggest negotiating weapon is silence.
Oh, yeah.
That's your number one weapon. Another one is humor and distraction.
Oh, humor and distraction
Yes.
are brilliant.
Yes.
And to humor, the biggest problem with the negotiation, and you were kind of hitting on it a couple of minutes ago, is the emotions, like how they feel. There are little things that we do that change everything about how someone feels, that changes everything about why they pay a couple $1 million for a Birkin bag.
Sure.
That's normally 50 grand or
Right.
100 grand, which is still a lot of money for a bag,
Sure.
right?
Tremendous.
But anyway, it's sometimes we lean into what we think we know, which is completely not where the power is of where we're going to get somewhere with somebody in a situation. It's actually just making it worse.
And what's interesting that you bring this up, and I'm kind of becoming more aware of it, but when you're playing a tennis match and it's really intense and the crowd's loud and everything, what happens is I actually get calmer. I get really calm and quiet. And I just had a client tell me that. She's like, you're really much calmer, and it was like a super intense client, all of this. And, I'm a pretty fired up guy in general, but when I'm in those really stressful moments, I get really calm.
It's almost like
because
your mind
I've been
clears,
trained. I've been trained my whole
slows.
life that you can't panic under pressure. You can't,
especially not in a tennis
and
match.
everything becomes noise.
Yeah.
And not, like it's coming in.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, I just get really calm in that moment. I don't know why.
It reminds
I can't
me
explain why,
but it
I
reminds me of
do.
like the Matrix, like
Yeah,
right when
it's
the
funny.
gun
I mean,
comes
it's
and it's
kinda
like
silly, I
suddenly
guess.
the gun's coming at you, but you like move.
Yeah.
It's like you're in the Matrix. But
In that really intense moment.
Yeah. I love it.
It's funny. Never thought about that, actually. So, I mean, I'm not trying to be like, Yoda.
It's true. Well, I kind of like, I like dig Yoda.
I like that.
My favorite Yoda. My favorite, I don't know if it's, I don't even know Yoda. It's like, I've not even made it through all of Star Wars.
Sure.
But I still have a favorite Yoda. When Luke Skywalker says, okay, I'll try. And Yoda goes, this may not even be the right words, but he goes, there is try. There is no try. There is do or do not do, or however he says it. He goes,
right.
And he goes, okay.
Yeah.
I've got like the clip. I'm gonna text it to you. I have it in my phone, but I always hear
like,
that.
You will pay me 3%.
Yes.
You will pay me all of my commission.
Right. Or my favorite, do you know, so have you you probably know.
You will buy the property for $108 million.
Well, you're gonna laugh.
You're closed tomorrow.
Do you know Haifa Curry? Do you know Haifa Curry she's with Sotheby's and she's in San Francisco.
Uh-huh.
She says this. She says, we won't quote commissions, even though I think that's ridiculous because like whatever commission we quote, somebody can still charge a different commission. But anyway.
It's all negotiable. It's always been negotiable. Let's just throw that out there.
Exactly. Well, the best, did you hear?
Oh my gosh.
I'm going to tell you Haifa's quote, and then I'm going to what you just said. But Haifa says, all of my clients pay me X%.
Okay.
That's easy. But there was an article recently, I don't even know who wrote it, that said, and I was saying this the whole time with the whole Sitzer Burnett, whatever nonsense. Yes. Okay, guys, if you think about this gives us a great opportunity to lean into a conversation, and our clients are going to recognize the value and pay us more.
Yeah.
And that's been happening.
Yes.
Again and again and again. And I'm like, yeah, duh. Like,
right. But I think there's another thing there. I go through this. I just went through this on a deal because they read the news and everything. And, in San Diego, we're more of a 5%, 2.5% and 2.5% market. Some markets are different, but it's predominantly like that. And we got an offer on a property. Offer came in at property's on at 5.5, came in at 5,250. The seller goes, okay, that's great. Let's cut the buyer's commission to 1. And I went, really? What? So here's what I said. I said, it was in our agreement. It's you can't really agree to pay 2.5, but they said verbally, hey, we would offer 2.5. So they said, let's cut them to 1. And I said, why would you do that?
Yeah.
And she said, well, we can save money on that. I said, well, you're not done with the negotiation. Why do you want to penalize your best advocate?
Yeah.
What would be the reason for doing that?
What do you think is going to happen if we do that?
And I said, do you think that she's going to fight for a better price for you or less price?
Exactly.
And she's like, oh, I never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
So then
it's a simple question.
Yeah. And so we ended up going back, doing the whole deal, and the agent got 2.5%.
Yeah. What's going to happen?
And every time we got another counter, she just wanted to reduce the commission. And I said, just build it into your counter.
Yeah.
Well,
it's interesting
big
because
deal?
I remember having clients come to me.
It makes no sense to disincentivize someone that's trying to fight for your number.
Would you? Well, not only that, and I think as agents, back to don't be defensive, like back to owning the value.
What's the strategy here? What are we trying to achieve?
As a seller's agent, say, okay, well, this is what they want, so we're going to have to split it. And I'm like, what? I'm sorry, but what if we could just do a lot? But what if I could like get you all that other stuff we were talking about you wanted, and let's not pay for that?
Yeah.
And you want me to? But my first favorite comeback is, oh, so you want me to pay for repairs?
Yeah, and with the look on your face, yeah.
And they're like, well, and I was like, well, even though I'm like really pissed now, but I'm going to like diffuse all that, be disciplined, do all that good stuff and go, so like, what if we like just didn't pay for that and got some improved terms for you? Oh, really? Yeah, we could do that. I mean, maybe I shouldn't since you want to take my money. I don't say that part. I just let that land.
I know.
But anyway.
Yeah. But I think we always have to remember that we do this all the time and that many of our sellers, they don't do this very much. And that's so important. And they're maybe great negotiators at everything. I have clients that are really successful negotiators at everything. They just don't do real estate. And
when it's your home, it's different.
Yeah, and it's your home, and you read all the news, and the news has been so inaccurate on this topic.
Oh, it's so
beyond inaccurate, and legitimate news sources have been inaccurate.
I think what's so important too is I get like I kind of get like mad, and what keeps me, because that's actually a dangerous place to go. It's good to go there on it, but if you
get fired up is one thing, to get mad is another.
Exactly. Yeah. However, stay curious.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so what, like you gave a great example. So what about that is a good idea?
Yeah. What are you trying to achieve there?
What are we trying to achieve here?
Yeah.
Right? Like, what if we could
And as a matter of fact, we got the buyer up another $150,000, and then we went through repairs. We didn't have to do any repairs, which saved them like 50-60. So we saved them all the money of the commission by rewarding the buyer's agent who was trying to fight for her client.
Yeah.
But she would have been less likely to fight as hard if she was maybe getting more. I mean, I don't know this to be true. Maybe she would have fought just as hard, but I'm just saying.
No, I doubt it.
Strategically, it just doesn't make sense.
I kind of doubt it. And I've seen buyers say when they see the seller do that or the seller's agent do that, they actually back out and are like, never mind, we don't want to negotiate.
Yeah, they go buy something else.
We don't want to work with people who do things this way. This isn't.
And we sold
agreement.
the property for 25% above anything that's ever sold in the area. So why would you want to penalize a buyer's agent who brought you an amazing offer?
Exactly. But again, what I do, I'm going to do two things. I always be careful with that word why. So what's the goal here? And
that's a good. What are we trying to achieve? What's the goal?
Or what's the goal? And the other one is just stay curious.
Right.
Stay curious, because that keeps them going.
Sure.
Gives them the sense of autonomy in the conversation.
Right. I agree.
Right? So it's been a while. I think the sun's starting to set. Are we ready for we do this every time.
Aren't we ready to go for a glass of champagne and watch the sunset?
We are, after the final three.
Okay.
Are we ready for the final three?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, number one, it's always the same, but the answers are always different. Okay, number one, when you think about your greatest resource for, in this case, being in the moment, being in it, and getting deals done, or as we like to call them, really making it happen in your money-making moments in this business, what's been your greatest resource for that?
So in the last 4 or 5 years, my business partner, Ross Clark, I mean, he's just been an invaluable resource. But I think for me, like personally, it's my ability to step back, even from the most intense situation, and just do what I call let my mind breathe. Just step back, let it kind of flower out, and then rethink what you're thinking and the direction you're going. And then I find out of that comes the solution. I think sometimes you can't always see the solution right away for the difficult deals. Yeah. But I always find that the curiosity study, but I think it's my ability to step back and reflect.
And look at things and be open to different ways of looking at things.
Yeah.
Number 2,
Sure.
what's a book that's been most influential?
I've been reading a lot of books recently on price.
Give us what?
Price and human behavior,
Yeah.
and I'm trying to think of the one I'm reading right now, and I cannot remember the name of it. I have to send it to you because I can't
Oh, no.
remember the name of the book.
Please send it because I'm going to read
Yeah.
it, and we've got to put it in the notes.
Right. It's price, and it's based on price and human behavior. So I've been reading a lot of books about price because, it's like elasticity of price and all of the different concepts that you get when you go and do your master's or you study pricing of things. Because I think it really applies to real estate. And I find that most of the pricing study we do, like we were just in an office meeting and it was high price, low price. Like there's like 100 pricing strategies out there that have worked over the years.
Yeah.
Why do they work? Why do humans react the way they do? And so I just been reading some books
What do
on
you think
that.
is your biggest takeaway in those books?
That price is perception. So what happens is where you put the price in the ad, how large you make the price in the ad, whether you do like $24.99, as much as it sounds silly, the way the mind processes numbers, and then the human behavior behind it. I think that's some of the most fascinating things about it. Like, how did Apple end up doing what they did with that phone? And how did they push the price? I mean, that's a fascinating story.
Yeah, it is.
How did they do that? That's what we do.
Well, the iPad came out in 2007 when nobody had money and people still lined up to pay over
they lined up.
$1,000
Yeah.
for it.
So how did they do that? So I just think I think a lot of the real estate were novices in some of the areas that have been done in other businesses and other areas. Why aren't we applying the same concepts?
Wholeheartedly agree.
It's not that tough.
Exactly.
We just need to read.
Well, I think if we need to read, and I think it comes to it's how we have conversations, how we position properties, how we understand how to position the properties.
Right.
Like all of those things combine, and maybe that's why.
Yeah.
All right, final question. If everybody forgets everything from this conversation but one, what do you hope they remember?
Tell a story. Tell a story. And early in my career, I saw, we were talking about Jack Cotton.
Yeah.
And he had a big impact on me because he told stories. And I'm like, this is the silliest thing I've ever heard. And then you start to do it. And not only do you remember, but you can have all of the different content in it. You remember the facts, the figures, the numbers, but it becomes very relatable to another person. And then be really careful with your story, because if your story is too long and too much, you'll lose people. But everything is, in a way, like, what's your story? What's fascinating about people that I'm finding right now is it's so interesting, people and what they've done in their lives and their story. And they really, really, when you meet people, you just can't believe what they've been through, their life experience, how they got to this moment. And it just really helps you understand your next step with them and interacting with them in general. And it's fascinating. So I think the story of tell the story, but understand other people's story and what their life path is. And I think it really makes it all makes sense.
Well, it gives us the things that they're not saying.
Right.
Start to come out, or they start to make sense.
Yeah.
Brett, it's so good to see you in person in the Sandcastle on the Jere Metcalf podcast. Thank you.
Jere, you're the best.
Thanks for listening to the Jere Metcalf podcast. To get show notes, get other access to other episodes, and to send any guest requests, go to jmpodcast.com. That's jmpodcast.com.